Alrighty, gents, welcome back. Thank you, everybody. I'm going to put the music on quite quietly. What I can do is actually bring my mic back in for this. So, the idea was, loads of you have been sending me emails and stuff. I really haven't got time to reply to them all. No doubt the people who send me emails aren't even in the chat right now, which is a pain in the ass, but I will chill out for a little while. I'll chill out for a little while and answer your questions and have myself a beer. Sol, I'm drinking. Cerveza. Mexican, apparently. So it says. So, feel free, guys. You've got my full undivided attention. Mr. Ghosty is no longer here. I hope that music isn't too loud, or if you can't hear it at all. I don't know. Let me know. It should be pretty good. So, I think we had a really good show tonight. I thought it was quite concise, but pretty good. Can you just throw out the full Transmog rules? It's actually difficult because it kind of changes, which is no help to any of you guys. But generally, the rule is that it's got to be a new character select screen, right? And it can't be something Blizzard has designed because it's not excited. It's not exciting, or it's not exactly work done by yourselves. It's not exactly work done by yourselves. If it's you know, a tier set, that's Blizzard's design. So we don't like using like, say, shoulders, especially shoulders, helm, and like chest and legs. They're major pieces of a Transmog set where someone puts similar boots and shit on, and that doesn't really work. So essentially, the winners, the past winners, have really been people who use everyone's using your own design. Like, be creative. That's the whole point. Is be creative. You said it's preachgaming@gmail.com. The deadline will just be by the next show. Stream week is in 2 weeks, I believe. What is one of my biggest worries for Legion? Legion's shaping up to be interesting because we know so little about it, right? That's the problem with Legion right now, is we actually know so little about it. Sorry, I'm just getting myself here sorted. We know so little about it. My biggest worry is the 1 year timeline. Honestly, my biggest worry is the 1 year timeline. Which means if Legion launches with problems, they're probably not going to get solved in any meaningful way. So, what we've seen so far is pretty encouraging. I'd say encouraging, not exciting. But if it launches and there's something not right, like they haven't, I just hope they've planned for like 3 months after launch. Not the first 3 months, because that's easy. The 3 months after launch. I just want that to be, they have some ideas there that keep people interested. And not cheesy ideas. I think another worry I have is they keep saying 5-mans are going to be relevant again. But I'm pretty sure that means, like, probably a profession reagent or something along those lines. Something that's not that interesting. And for me, yes, technically they are correct. That keeps them relevant, but it doesn't make them fun. From Light Up. So, Preacher, I think class spec identity wouldn't come back because it only... Oh, this is going to be hard. Because it only worked with 40-man raiding. What do you think? No, I don't agree with that. I think class and spec identity is very achievable. Very, very achievable. We went down a road for a number of reasons with homogenizations. And homogenization was kind of a good thing. If any of you raided around Sunwell era, I done Sunwell. If you raided around that period of time when you were like requiring 5 shamans to be in the raid because of a spell, homogenization makes so much sense. It's nice to see they're thinking about grip and bringing that into it. But class identity, I don't think class identity has actually got that lost. Warlocks compared to mages are still very, very different. Mages compared to most... rogues to warriors are still very, very different. But those individual classes need their own identity. Like hunters are in a really bad place, so hopefully they'll do that. So I would like to see that. I think it's fully achievable. I would like to see raid sizes increased back to 25. I think 20 is a little too small for me personally. Some people like it, some people hate it. They want 10 back. I don't want to return to 10-man and trying to balance that again. I think that was just a nightmare. And we've been down that road a lot of times. There's a lot of people who still ask for 10-man to come back, but they really don't see the problems that causes with creating good encounters. As much as people have a problem with Legion, and I have a problem with not Legion, WoD, and I have a problem with WoD in various places, the raid boss design, because it was set to 20, especially on Mythic, I will say Blast Furnace Mythic was easily one of my favourite encounters of all time. It really was. It was as simple as that. Are you worried about the artifacts forcing pure DPS classes to play one of their specs? No. I don't. I think that would be a huge problem if they didn't make it so you could very, very quickly sort of switch over. And because you're in that, they're almost saying at that point, which is a rather arrogant approach, is that this spec will be the best for you. Now they can do that, but the whole point is to try and balance all three of the trees. Whether or not they're taking this approach, which is entirely possible, if they're taking this approach that they're going to balance the 3 DPS specs to be relatively the same, but they want you to commit to it. That's entirely possible as well. Whether they're not, they could be really unhappy with people, like, let's take a mage, going like Frost, Fire, and Arcane in a single raid. They might want people to be more like, well, I'm Fire because I'm further along my artifact in that. And so if I switch to Frost, yes, I can do it. Maybe it's better for the encounter, but I'm not as powerful, so maybe I should just stick with Fire. They could be a little, because there's a reason, right? They don't want to give us tri-spec. From a logical, practical point of view, it doesn't make any sense why we don't have tri-spec. Why can I not just switch between all 3 of my specs? It doesn't really make a difference. You're literally adding a journey to the class trainer, which is, what, less than a minute in a raid time? It doesn't matter. So it could be that they're trying to push people to be one spec. But that's really dangerous. Really dangerous. What do you hope to see for survival hunters in Legion? If I can go... I'll be completely honest. 2 things. Let me take 2 approaches. One, it's going to stay survival and it's going to be melee. I hope it's not too similar to a monk, which I think is maybe the approach you're going to see. Is that it's kind of like a Windwalker monk in its style of play. I could see that coming just based on the idea of having the spear. My ultimate wish is that they remove survival and bring Gunslinger in and just drop survival, because survival should be the PvP thing, really. That should be the idea. Using the traps and all that should be the PvP thing. But that doesn't really work in a PvE encounter. I mean, they've tried to do it in the past where traps were really relevant and people were trying to work in standing under the boss and all that kind of stuff to make the traps work. It's not really practical. I would really like them to just drop survival and just could bring Gunslinger in, because Gunslinger deserves to be in the game at this point. Inagami, yes, you're absolutely right, Inagami. I did mention it earlier that I knew there was names I was supposed to add to the drama. Let me add it to my notepad, actually. And I'll save it. Sorry, Inagami. I apologise. It wasn't intentional, I just couldn't remember the names. And that's my fault. Breach, what do you find... do you find it a bit annoying that they're stripping half the abilities from Demonology and giving them to Demon Hunters? Do you feel like it's sort of cutting corners? It's so weird that this is happening, because it was only a month before Gamescom where Legion was announced, right? It's like a month before that Demonology was hammered. Absolutely hammered by Blizzard. And they openly said it's because the spec wasn't quite right and it was too complicated, blah, 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 blah. And then can we take that as a truth at this point? At the time... Sure, I can accept that maybe they felt that spec was too difficult for the results it's got. I don't agree with that, and I think most people who play demo for... Maybe it takes you a month of doing encounters repeatedly to really see the potential of Demonology, but you got great results out of it, and I enjoyed Demonology. It was by far the best spec, especially when compared to how dull Affliction and Destruction are, which are very, very dull specs. They are. To then see them say that Demonology is not quite working, we don't really like it, blah, 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 all these reasons... And then, oh, look, here comes the Demon Hunter, which is a Demonology Warlock. Is exactly every single spell that they've revealed so far, and it could change dramatically, every single spell they've revealed so far is a Demonology Warlock spell. Every single one of them is a Demonology Warlock spell. And I don't know why they decided to change the path of like, oh, we don't want you to play Demonology. Which was the message, right? Clear and loud. We don't want you to play Demonology. That was it. They actually said those words, which caused the outcry. And then we find out, well, the new class that's joining the game is basically the class that you told us you didn't want us to play. So I find that really, really awkward. How do I try to convince my guild to try harder to progress in Hellfire Citadel, or rather than spending 5 to 10 minutes between wipes doing nothing? I tend to find if your raid leaders aren't lacking patience, and probably my raid leader, Pyro, would be... I'm always trying to pull while Pyrrhwin's not even... Because Pyrrhwin does the loot in our guild. So when I joined the tanking team on Stark, I sort of slyly, but my other tank will... Shade will back me up on this. We started timing the runs, and we were trying to chop 15 minutes, essentially. And we successfully did that. We chopped 15 minutes off every farm run, week on week. So we were like, when's the break? Okay, what boss can we kill before that? Let's try and push it a little bit more. And I was always on vent trying to get people to go faster and faster and faster. Because on farm raids, I want to go super fast. I hate farm raiding. It's so boring. So we should be clearing that as soon as possible. But if historically, and the only reason Pirowin didn't catch up is because he was doing loot. It wasn't because he's not of this mindset. Is that if your raid leaders and officers aren't really of the idea that this is boring, we've done this before, we should go pretty fast, they're probably not going to do that. And trying to force that on them doesn't really work. Unless you're in like a tanking position. Because I could just pull trash, which is what I started doing, right? And then Shade was with me as well. We just started pulling trash as soon as the boss was dead. And it's, well, you've got to catch up, because otherwise your tanks are going to die. So if you're not in a position of a tank where you can kind of force the pressure of the run, I always say as a tank, you need to take on that role of being in control of the speed of the run. But once you reach the boss, you've got no more trash to pull. You're kind of at the mercy of your raiders. So you kind of have to do that then. Which is, you've got to bow down to the fact that maybe that will never happen. Do you think if threat would be a thing again, it was a talent choice, like blood talents for a druid? You lose base threat for taking a talent, but you gain a buff to something else's survivability, so you can go easy mode for scrub tanks, or skill-capped players can gain better from their gameplay. It's an interesting idea. I hadn't thought of that. I'll be honest with you. I hadn't thought about sacrificing... Like... The problem is, there's two problems there. This is off the top of my head. I probably need to give this deeper thought, honestly. There's a problem there. Most people who aren't great at the game and can't make decisions on talents for themselves, something I always try and instill in you in the basic guides that I did for WoD, is that this is how these talents work. Try and use your brain to think about why these talents would make sense for each fight. What tends to happen in the vast majority of cases is people armory better players and just duplicate exactly what they have, even if that was some setup for one specific fight. And we've all been guilty in the past, and absolutely everybody here who's played WoW has done this, is armoried somebody or checked out what the best talent system is. And I often find that that leads people to just be stuck in a bad place all the time. So a good example of that would be Druids, actually, with Feral, with the Claws of Shavala. It's an easier spec to play. And playing Blood Talons... as you brought up there, playing Blood Talons is actually more difficult, although it's not hard, alright, we all know that. But it's not hard, but it's more difficult to play Claws of Shavala. But I guarantee you that if somebody had Googled or armored somebody playing Claws for some fucking reason, they would play Claws forever. Because they don't understand how Blood Talons works and stuff. So I think that's a bit I think it's difficult to affect the masses. The problem with Threat is that you only benefit from Threat being in the game if you're a good player and always in a raid environment. Which I don't think is great. Would you have preferred that the artifacts weren't so lore heavy, maybe just have it as a weapon you craft yourself, or with the help of a famous person of your class? Absolutely. I'd have liked to have... I think, just expanding on this, and this will answer the question the same thing. I think the next big step for MMOs, as I've said many, 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 many times, I'm not looking forward to any MMO that's currently in production besides maybe Star Citizen. That's about it, because it looks like it might be a game changer. I think the next mega MMO... I truly believe this, that will just come in and do what World of Warcraft did at the time, will be one where nearly every item in the game, especially the good stuff, right, once we get up to the good stuff, will be customized and created by the players. Instead of us having to rely on Blizzard to make us good armor sets, good weapons, good visuals, good transmogs, all that kind of stuff. Instead of relying on Blizzard to do that for us, a better system would be that the players can create that and they can sell it, and you can seek out players who can make that stuff for you. That would be when I would see the new MMO quashing everything. That would crush everything. If you could literally, you know, customize everything, and you could visit an armorsmith, and visiting an armorsmith would do something like that. So, EVE Online, not really, because you're still based on the ship. I've only played little with EVE, but I'm talking mega customization, like mega, down to the color, not just the stats. I mean, I played in Neocron, my original MMO, all the weapons were handcrafted. Every single epic weapon in the game was handcrafted. You could farm the materials, but ultimately you had to visit a weaponsmith to have it crafted. And not only that, the skill and the ability of that weaponsmith mattered. So you could farm for the same amount of time as someone else and get two radically different weapons. That boosts social interaction. People become famous for that. And you want to seek out certain things. You want things crafted by a certain player. It was quite a thing, and probably still is in World of Warcraft, to have, say, a shirt, which meant nothing, but have that person who's crafted it written on it. So, yeah, that would be pretty cool. Any speculation on Shadow Priests or disc changes? What do you think will happen? I think disc is going to be a disaster. I can't see Dis working in the idea that we've been presented with so far, which is 50-50 healing DPS, kind of, right? That's the situation we're in now. I cannot see that working. I can't see why a guild would take that without it providing some sort of extraneous buff. It works for the ideas that we talked about with the hybrid classes in terms of them like support roles, right? It works if there's a support role where you do 50% healing, 50% damage, but you provide support in some other manner. But to be a raw class that does that, I can't see that working out. As for Shadow Priest, all we know so far is that they're changing the resource system to Insanity. That could mean literally anything. So I'm in the air. I wouldn't like to speculate on what that means. It could literally be another word for Chi Orbs or the Shadow Orbs. They could have just changed Shadow Orbs to be called Insanity for all we know. It doesn't mean anything. So I don't know. Any fan meets in the future? I am BlizzCon next year, assuming it goes ahead, because they cancelled it once. Assuming it goes ahead, I will be at BlizzCon next year. I'm hoping to be in Sweden for DreamHack. I am going to be in Berlin in April, but Ghosty will not be. I'm going to be in Berlin for a guild meet, but I believe there's... Well, it's a Stark guild meet, which is essentially a fan social guild with raid teams within it. So everybody's invited to the thing. So yes, I will be in Berlin in April, and you can visit starkindustries.com to find out the details about that. As far as I know, and I could be shitting on everyone's toes here, everybody's welcome. So I will be there. But Ghosty will be with me at BlizzCon next year. No Ghosty, no fun. Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Do you think we'll get a new crafting professions, and what do you think they could add? I don't think so. I don't think professions are going to change too much at all. They say they're going to change. I don't see it. I don't see it. And this is why I'm being pessimistic about Legion. I really don't see them changing professions too much at all. I think there will be a new reagent, which will probably come from 5-man dungeons and probably from raids. Very TBC style model, which was nether vortexes and primal nethers and all that kind of nonsense. Will be coming from there. There'll be some new quests involved, but nothing overly exciting. I think the profession system to be fixed into something really interesting is probably going to be 2 expansions. You have to take your time with the player base, and that's what a lot of us don't like, especially if we're able to adapt very quickly. So they give us information, and we're like, okay, this is how it works now, right? So, like, I can pick up a class, and someone could tell me, yesterday I played a Demonology Warlock, it played that way. I can read probably 3 or 4 lines that, oh, it plays this way now, and I'll be fine. I'll just get on with it and just be no problem at all. Whereas other people are going to be like, oh shit, this has ruined my entire life. So professions are probably going to take a long time to change. I've read your answer about abilities that are given to demon. I'm curious where you'd like to see them take the Demonology Warlock. How would you design a demon summoning based spec without making your most powerful demons a boring cooldown based ability? There's almost an endless amount of options you can go with that. And that's the fun thing about being Demonology. And why Beastmaster should be very fun as well. Because you are not limited to your character. And that's amazing. The amount of freedom that opens you up creatively is that you are not limited to your character. I always thought that Demonology and Beastmaster should involve somehow becoming a demon and becoming the beast. And there's choices there on where you leave your character while you do that. And you can either jump on the back of a demon and ride it into battle, or you can do something with a demon, or you literally fade out and become a demon. There's all sorts of ways you can do that. But I would absolutely love to see it not just like, oh, I've summoned 2 Doom Guards, which I said this in the very first guide, I'm pretty sure, is that I never understood why anyone thought having a permanent Doom Guard was fun. Because Doom Guard being a 10-minute cooldown was a big moment. That was pretty fucking huge, right? It was a big, huge thing, and it's like, oh, you just have it all the fucking time now. It's like, well, you've taken one of my really cool things and made it boring. Like Charred Remains is the same for the Destro Warlocks. Like, Chaos Bolt is supposed to be something that I think about a lot. Like, I need to cast Chaos Bolt now because now it'll kick ass. And then you gave me Charred Remains, it's like Chaos Bolt, Chaos Bolt. And it just makes... I don't get why they make interesting spells like that boring. Because the only inevitable end to giving you constant access to something is to make it dull. So, yeah, I don't know why they do that. I would love to see you disappear into the nether and become a demon. Choice of demons. Interesting abilities, not just 4 buttons. I think that would be a terrible way to go, 4 buttons. And to alter that between like an AoE demon and, you know, you can shift around and do all kinds of crazy things. So it'd be pretty cool. Demon Bolt, very boring. Very, very boring. Exactly. Especially because you just did 4 back to back and then back to normal. What do you think about artifact weapons being the only weapon type drops in the next expansion? And what do you think is going to happen to the artifacts of the expansion of Legion? The artifact system is probably one of the best ideas they've ever come up with from what we know so far. I've discussed it a couple of times. So the idea is very simple. They can either go down the road of constantly adding new talents. Now, that's very difficult because once you add new talents, they're very set in stone because the talent system only has, usually in a new expansion, you get one line of 3 talents, right? Now, the issue you have there is that those 3 talents have to be really, really good. Otherwise, it's like, why do I even level? What's the point? This is not exciting. I have just hit level 110. I should get something really cool for that. And it started to wane because they're trying to balance it and not make people crazily overpowered. And what we've ended up with is things like Demon Bolts, Charred Remains, all these things that are just fucking super boring. They're just not interesting. Or spells like Comet Storm, which should be amazing, but were kind of iffy for a while. The artifact weapon system is really good because, one, they can give you lots of small choices that don't really mean that you have to get mega excited about them, right? It's a nice change. Similar to what we had in WoD, it's like we got Blade Flurry that hits like loads of targets. That was super cool, right? And we got all these extra bonuses that were just really cool. Avenger's Shield hits 5 targets. That was awesome. And we got that in the form of the perks. But now they're baked into the game. They're there to stay more than likely because now they're balanced around it. With the artifact system, they can do all this kind of little perky stuff that's not game-breaking or anything like that. And at the end of the expansion, as you mentioned, they can just wipe it clean. And be like, well, your artifact weapon's out of date now. Here's your new one. And they don't have to commit forever to stuff they put in an artifact weapon. They don't have to do that. Otherwise, they'd have a system where your artifact weapon is about as long as my dick, right? It's like super fucking huge. And it goes all the way to fucking whatever. Yeah, bullshit. So the artifact system is a really nice way of them being able to not overly commit and reset to stuff. And I really like that. Do you think WoW will go free to play in the future? Never say never. Never say never. Not in the near future. I wouldn't have expected. I don't think. I think free to play only means one thing, right? It means microtransactions. What exactly are they going to charge you for? What exactly are they going to charge you for? I don't know. I don't know. Okay. Mythical text. Preacher, I left WoW just before WoD launch, but I've recently got a new PC and I've resubbed to WoW. I really want to level my Ret Paladin BM Monk to 100, but I just can't be arsed. Is there anything you could suggest to get me to be motivated? My best advice, but remember, everybody levels differently. Something to remember. But I remember I did level 11 times in WoD. But this is how I mean, leveling 11 times is going to take its toll on anybody, and it did on me as well. But the best thing I found is that the leveling experience in WoD is actually really good. In my opinion, it's really, really good. It's not Star Wars The Old Republic good, but it's pretty good. Is to explore the zones. Really read into what's going on in the zones. Because Wars of Draenor has... Nearly every zone has a major cutscene or a major event that's really cool and worth seeing. And I will tell you, if you've not capped, is that you will hit that. And I think you should just take in the zones. Because they're very story-driven. Every WoD zone is very story-driven. I would definitely, even if you cap, which you probably will, 100% in a grand to get the final cutscene. Unless you've already seen it, which is spoilers, but... I would do it anyway, because the story leading up to the final cutscene is very cool as well. Oh, so many questions. I'll stick around, guys. Don't worry, I'm not going anywhere. What do you think about the pirate rogue that's happening? Celestalon tweeted about making cool pirate-themed moves. Hype? It depends how it works. Is it based on a new spec, or is it just adding in... I'll tell you what I'm not against. I think that's probably a better idea. I'm not against some form of illusion which just has silly fun animations that is probably tied to professions to make those professions more interesting. Like alchemy. So you can actually go and get a pirate thing. And you can do that if you choose to. And I think that's a fair deal. I think that's a fair deal. Is to go and do that. So they're difficult to make. Make alchemy far more interesting than flasks and potions, which I could honestly see flasks and potions maybe even being deleted from the game. Potions might stay, but I can see flasks disappearing. I think they're probably, if they're not this expansion, unless they change them dramatically, if flasks stay the same, they'll probably be deleted next expansion. They're just so pointless these days. Food buffs as well. I can imagine them disappearing. All these sort of static, boring buffs just disappearing because then it's pointless. You have a flask on every time. What's the fucking point? But if it's something you could choose to do for fun, if you like being pirate stuff, then sure, go and do that. Like, see if your Delight turns you into a ninja. That'd be cool if you got ninja animations instead of just the human animations. I think that'd be okay. There's on how DH tanks will play and mitigate. The high dodge. I think they've already answered that question. It's like really high dodge. Monk style. I don't think it'll be too creative. I'm holding my breath. I'm holding my breath a little bit on the Demon Hunter. I can't see it being really interesting. There isn't that much choice with how you tank. There isn't. There isn't that much. I mean, you have magical damage and physical damage. And there are only a certain amount of ways that you can really consistently handle both. And that's just the end of the story. That's just the end of the story. I can't see it being something really fun. It'll just be heavily avoidance based. So, yeah, I think that'll be about it. I wouldn't expect to be like, whoa, that's amazing. But I'm not being like a pessimist, but I'm just saying in general, that's kind of how I feel. I kind of how I feel about that. Auras? Maybe. I mean, they still haven't got Guardians in an interesting place. I don't think so anyway, so that's the question. Do you think that with class dehomogenization, Blizzard will have a hard time balancing the classes in both PvE and PvP classes and many more new mechanics and methods? That problem shouldn't come up because of the new PvP talents. Finally, right? Interestingly enough, it was exactly what we asked for a little while ago. But the PvP talent should solve that on its own. Classes will still have a fundamental way of playing. But the new PvP talent system that's separate from the PvE one should fix that for us, so it shouldn't be a problem. Hey, Preach, yo! Can you tell me what's your opinion on the direction of elemental shamans, mate? What do you think of the artifact should be? I had the idea for their casting resources to be harmony between elements and all that jazz, and also the talents and so forth. Do you think that they should change more resource names like mana to insanity, etc.? I like elemental shamans. Their problem is really obvious. And that's the big thing. The problem with Elemental Shaman is really obvious. And probably Jaxie's here who re-rolled away from Elemental Shaman. It was a good I think he was 99th percentile Elemental Shaman for a while there. They're just... Gonna get the name. Flame Shock. The Flame Shock thing is just so annoying. So ridiculously annoying in the design of WoD. But the design of WoD's raid bosses is pretty good. But it punishes those specs unnecessarily to the point where they're rendered useless. I don't think you can ever really, and we had this discussion probably back before Warlords of Draenor when they announced Shadow Priest should have weaker single target DPS because of their AoE. Is that you can't say that, oh, your perk is having great AoE. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work that way. In regards to their artifacts and stuff, that's probably a lore question. Not for me. Not for me. I don't care. I really don't. It's as simple as that. I'm not bothered. It'll be whatever it is, and that's the one you'll get. Doesn't really matter. Flopper. Do you think that the new artifacts are going to be equal in terms of story and lore? No, absolutely not. I think you're in Dreamworld if you think the backstory and richness, I think it's the correct word to use there, if the richness of each artifact weapon is going to be equal. No. And it can't be. There's too many. This is just far too many to make that happen, so it's not going to happen. Will it create an uneven class balance? No, because the weapons themselves will grow statically in power. They'll probably be pretty equal. And in terms of their power and stuff, they should be pretty equal. I expect most of the artifact weapon perks that you're going to be choosing won't be game-breaking, as I said earlier. So they're not going to be like of the level of new talents or anything like that. I don't think that's going to happen. So yeah, I think that's going to be pretty good. Do you think it will be harder to fit melee into your raid team since Hunter is getting a melee spec and Demon Hunter is getting a melee spec? Yes. That's inevitable. It's inevitable. I'm really shocked they're adding 2 new melee classes. Unless they're going to change the size of raids. They have yet to say whether they will or not. It's possible they will add 5 extra spots for raids. But if it stays as 20 man, I mean, that's not even one of every melee. As like a bare minimum. So yeah, it's going to be a big problem. It's going to be a big problem. I mean, I love melee. I like being in the thick of it. But it's a very busy place already. And yeah, I don't know what's going to be going on there. I don't know what's... that's one of the bizarre ones that I'm hoping we see some sort of conclusion to, is to why are you adding 2 new possible melee spots? Because that's a lot. That's a lot. And we already know Survival's getting grip. And as we've seen in Warlords of Draenor, grip is really good. Really, really good. Like, crazy good. It's a game changer in a lot of fights. So I don't know what's going on there. Do you think the Feral will become more dynamic? I hope so, is my question. Is my answer. I hope so. I think everything besides Tree needs a whole reevaluation. Feral is disgusting. In my opinion. I know the people love Feral, and I don't mean to offend you at all. That's just my personal opinion, right? But I think Feral is disgusting, the state of Feral right now. Absolutely fucking terrible. Moonkin, I also very much dislike compared to how it used to be. It just feels like you're only going to make mistakes with Moonkin. It feels like that every time I play it. It's like this spec is playing, I'm on a ride with this spec, and I can only make mistakes. I can only rattle the cart. It'll keep going regardless of what I do. The spec is going to continue and keep doing what it's going to do. And Guardian is just horrendous. The gameplay for Guardian, in my opinion, after playing every spec all the time, regularly, is just atrocious. I mean, I did that whole video, and I didn't really get a negative response. I mean, I had a few Druids who contacted me who were super angry, but Druids in general tend to be very defensive. So do Shamans. Shamans and Druids, traditionally, and you've seen that throughout the life of my channel, every time I have said something negative about those, although I'm being fair in my critique, as far as I'm concerned, they've always been super defensive and super aggressive towards their responses towards me. Which is fine. People get like that. But those specs are just so bad. They're so far behind the times. And they gave them 4 individual specs, which meant they should have had a playground. They should have had a playground. But what they seemed to do with those 4 specs was just divide the 3 without adding much of anything new. And I mean, we've even seen in WoD, some of the talents they added in Warlords of Draenor were things from the Burning Crusade, things we'd been playing with a long time. So there you go. Do you think DPS will gain control again? God, I fucking hope so. I really hate the state of DPS right now. And from what I'm gathering from my friends from the World First, depending on who you trust on WoW Progress, from the World First to our guild and the guys who email me from all the way down from guilds who are still doing Arkham on normal, which is we have the whole array of people in here, is that it's just frustrating, and Hellfire Citadel has made it even worse via its trinkets. I mean, we've seen now that in order to get rank 1, some mages, I mean, this is what my mage friend told me. I mean, I haven't researched it recently, so it's probably changed. But because of the strength of the Manaroth trinket, is that to get rank 1, I believe it's on the guy who has the 3 coloured pools, whatever the fuck his name is, the big rock guy, are actually not DPSing at all. So they can make sure their procs go off when they AoE. And by doing that, they're doing more damage over the course of that fight than people who are DPSing from this first second. Now think about that for a moment. They're doing more damage by waiting for one, probably 10-second, if not 5-second period of time in the fight than they would do over the course of the entire fight. It's ridiculous. Fucking stupid. May I ask what defines a good player from a great player? Really difficult question, that light, especially recently. Really difficult question. When things go wrong is my answer to the question. When things go wrong, it's very difficult to see a really great player when things are going right. If everything's going smoothly and it's a farm kill, right? You'll see. I think a great example of this is to watch Method's first kill of Socrathar Mythic. That was in this tier. Watch that fight carefully. Don't watch it from the perspective of looking at a DPS meter, because it's totally the wrong way to look at progress videos. I've done videos on how you should look at a progress video. You should check them out if you're not sure how to do it. If you watch a progress video like, oh, they killed it, cool. Watch that fight. It goes horrendously wrong. Horrendously wrong. And every single one of them copes with it in an own individual way. Stays calm. Manages it. Deals with it. And that's the sign of great players. That's the sign of great players. And you won't, because most people will have instantaneously wiped when things like that go wrong. You'll often find that when you get your first kill, in the lower down the tiers you go in terms of your kills, you'll find that you only kill the boss when everything goes right. When things are dealt with, when things die appropriately. So let's take Mythic Blackhand, for example. If a siege tank manages to get off its extra mortar, you will probably wipe. A great guild can cope with that. And not only cope with that, but still be playing and doing more damage and more healing and taking less damage than you will when everything goes right. That's the sign of great players. How do you reach this level? It's going to get a little philosophical on you. I'm sorry, this is true. Because I hit this point a while ago. I'm not there anymore, and I'm okay with that. I haven't got the hunger or the thirst to go for it anymore. You reach this level by first accepting that you're not the best player ever. right? And that can be very humbling for a lot of people. It happened to me. I did the story time on it, right? I realized that I wasn't as good as I thought I was. Because the people I was playing with weren't very good. And therefore, I was good compared to them. So at the time, I had a huge ego and thought I was fantastic, right? And then suddenly I got up against somebody else. And then I started getting asked questions that I'd never considered before. In order to reach this level, you have to be playing with players who are already at that level or going there themselves. You can't really do it alone. I don't think so. I don't think you can become a fantastic player, not just in WoW, but in anything. You can't become the best CSGO player by just doing pugs against noobs. You have to be playing with other people and talking about things that you don't ordinarily talk about. I sat and had conversations about 100 HP for hours. Looking at encounters, standing in an empty room where we just killed a boss with my tanking partner, just talking about where people were, looking at the video and talking about things, and started to consider actions that took place minutes before that led to us being in a situation where that player died. And it's really difficult to do that. Most of you will watch, I'll give another example. Most of you will watch a video of a world first kill or whatever it might be, and you'll see somebody die. Now, nearly 99% of you will say he died because of X. That's nearly never, ever, ever the case. It really is nearly never, ever the case, because everybody has ways and means of surviving really bad situations. So then you have to start looking at why that happened, and you have to start asking questions like, oh, right, if I did that, what would this do? Maybe I can think about this and that. And then you start to realize these things. And then you look at, say, Paragon's Alakir kill, right? You look at Paragon's Alakir kill, and you look at, I forget the name of the hunter. It might be Devi, who's still playing there. It might have been someone else. You look at how relaxed that hunter was when he jumps off the platform and then disengages back onto it around a cyclone while there's a knockback going on. There's 3 killer elements there that would murder most of you. And he so casually does it. But you also bear in mind he probably did that 50, 60 times before you saw that clip in the video. But then you get to that stage where, would you have even considered doing that? Maybe. Would you have considered doing that while knockback was going on, which also kills you? And usually you say to disengage for that. You have to start looking at things and saying, can I do that differently? You have to question yourself constantly. Absolutely question yourself constantly. And then you start doing better. Would you like to see a new role implemented soon? Absolutely. Absolutely. I would love to... At the moment, I'm not doing guides anymore, as most of you know. Although, if you didn't catch the video where I told you about it, you probably don't know that. But I'm not doing guides anymore because there's not much point. I would absolutely love to have a new dynamic thrown into the game. For me, personally, this sounds selfish, but I can pick up a DPSer, and without trying, I'll do 90% of its capability. Like, just derping around, watching Netflix, and having not played it for 6 months. Right? That's why I make guides, because I've always been able to do that. And if I try hard, I'll be up to the standard necessary. So, I want a new dynamic, because it's so common sense to me. It's like, I can play my tank without watching the screen. I know my muscle memory knows the cooldowns of everything, and how to tank. I know how to DPS. I know how to heal. I'm not a great healer. I'll always say that. I'm not a great healer. But I would love a new dynamic in the game that really shifts everything. Because you add a new role, a new dynamic to the game, it changes everything. It absolutely changes everything. I would absolutely love to see that. They said they're going to rework a lot of classes. Do you have anything particular you are hoping for? I think that's a lie. I think rework can be stretched. And I think this is where a lot of us get really angry because our imagination flares up. They say they're going to rework something. That could mean fucking anything, man. That can really mean anything. From changing the name of the resource system to just altering it in some way. Like, a proper rework is like what we saw with Warlocks. Where Warlocks went from these mana users, and then suddenly they had 3 different resource systems. Kind of work the same way, but they got a whole new revamp, a whole new rework. That's a rework, in my eyes. But a rework to Blizz can mean anything. Absolutely anything. The main ones I want to see... Be a little gassy from the beer. The main ones I want to see are Hunters and Druids. Hunters and Druids. I would love to see that. Favorite boss of all time. Currently Mythic Blast Furnace. I absolutely adored that fight. It was one that I had the most input on. I thought, honestly, that the Clappy Hands guy... Is it Clappy Hands guy? Not Clappy Hands guy. Yeah, Clappy Hands guy, who comes out of that. I enjoyed that fight until it became very static. And once we figured it out, I like a puzzle. I think that's important to remember. Is what I really like in the game is a puzzle. How do we kill this boss? I don't care. This is why I don't like going in. I don't like going into a boss fight on progress and knowing what happens. I fucking hate that. Absolutely fucking hate it. But I'm in a guild that does that. But I accept that. That's fine. I go in and then our esteemed mage, Mr. Nups, sits down and does his big speech. And I always like tap the glass. Like when it starts like... Quiet please. Quiet please. Nups is about to make his fucking speech. And we all have to sit there while he recounts the videos and all the officers have been watching it. And that's fine because most of the raiders in my guild need that. That's cool. But I like a puzzle. And so when we get a fight like Clappy Hands... Everybody, all the officers and stuff knew what to do, but we weren't killing it consistently. We weren't getting it consistent. And it's something you should always remember about Blizzard. If you have a tactic or a fight, and last time I left, and maybe they've cured it, we had a problem on Tyrant Valhari where our strategy could sometimes make people die. And I kept saying, this is wrong. We are doing this fight wrong. But because I was tanking, I couldn't see what was going on behind it. It was really driving me crazy to watch it properly. But our strategy was wrong, because Blizzard don't design things that way. Our strategy is wrong. And I love the puzzle. And Blast Furnace was the best puzzle I've come up against in a fucking long time. A really long time. Kel'Thas is a very, very, very extremely close second, by the way. Very, very close second. Mainly because of how my guild did it. With me doing so much extra shit, like carrying the legendary staff over to the Feral Druid. And I still don't know why I did that. I think the Feral Druid wasn't very good. He was tanking something. I think the Feral Druid wasn't very good, so it was easier for me to tank like the shield, the legendary shield on Kel'Thas, and loot the mob, and then walk over to him, and then trade him the fucking staff, and then go back to my tanking position before Dooms ticked and stuff like that. Fucking stupid. But that was what I considered to be an easier strategy than him picking it up on his own. I think that was what it was. I could be wrong. Do you like 4 tiers of raiding? I don't like being on a timeline, I think is a better answer to that question. The amount of raiding, I don't really mind. It's always nice to have variation. Kata had it correct, I think, because Kata had the Throne of the Winds, which was just a couple of bosses, but a very cool environment. And it had the other areas that you could go into. I forget the names of the raid tiers. You have to forgive me, I've raided a lot of raids. I like smaller raids. I like smaller raids that are all very, 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 very different. Hopefully Legion will do that. I don't like things like Hellfire Citadel. I like Hellfire Citadel. It's fine. But it's just one big lump of content that all kind of looks the fucking same. That's one of the reasons that Karazhan is considered so godlike. Because you start at Karazhan in the bottom, which looks like Karazhan, and you end in a demonic Inferno Fireball. And in between you go into a play, and then you go into a chess, and you do all this fucking... And then a balcony fighting dragons to a demonic prince on the top of the fucking place. And you change environments so regularly in one tiny piece of fun raid that was designed before you'd even started main raiding. That's why it's considered that way. So I think that's very cool. Okay, wow, you guys are doing really well with the questions, but I'm here. For a new dynamic, would you like to have to aim at your stuff? No, that would never work in WoW. I don't mind that. I'm not a bad aim by any means. I always try... Most of my stream, most of you guys actually know this, but watching me stream a game is not representative of me streaming a game. After watching me do Stream Week, you can probably understand now why I don't stream my raids. Because I play very, very differently. Like I stream... I mean, I had that thing with Mad Max, that controversy this week with Mad Max. And it was because I don't play the game. Is kind of what I'm saying. I don't play the game like I would play the game when I'm streaming. So, I mean, I think I went off topic there. I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry. But yeah, that would be pretty cool. What would you think about getting the old hunters back? Being able to use every weapon in the game and things like that. I don't see the point. You could use every weapon in the game, but you wouldn't. You would use the best bow you had. You know what I mean? Use the best bow or gun you had. You might have been able to equip every weapon, but you certainly didn't use every weapon. You might have had the ZG swords on your back or whatever it might have been, but it didn't really matter. So, yeah, I wouldn't ever think of doing that. What would be the best time to get back into raiding, or would it be better to wait until Legion launches? Difficult question, because Legion's caused the early announcement of Legion has caused an unprecedented reaction in that people were already unhappy with WoD. We know that. So no point in complaining about that. WoD was a weak expansion, we can say that. People were already unhappy with WoD, and then seeing what's coming later, people instantaneously started leaving the game. Like, the people who hadn't played came back, to get ready for Legion. The guys who are already semi-ready, like my character is like, I don't know, 720 something item level. He's more than ready to level in fucking Legion, right? I don't give a shit. I'm going to get new weapons anyway. So he's more than ready. And those guys who are in that position were like, I don't give a fuck. I'm out of it. I know I've got things like Mythic Gorfiend coming on, which is amazing. My guild killed that this week. But people just started leaving the game. So trying to get into a raid guild now is really difficult. Because you have to be so careful that you're joining a raid guild that actually wants you in Legion. Rather than a raid guild that just wants to keep raiding. Right? Two very, very different fucking things. Two very, very different things. Right? Two very, very different things. So if you go and try and join a raid guild right now, you have to be like super careful they're not guys who are going to instantly replace you. Let's say a random guild, and this is not true. I don't want to be this. I'm not being this kind of prick. But let's say I knew that if I stopped playing now, which I'm not planning on doing, I'm just trying to make sure that I'm using myself as an example here, but it's not the case. I left now, but I know as soon as I come back in Legion, I will get a raid spot. So they recruit another tank, right? This could be you. You could be that tank. But little does anybody say to you, oh yeah, come on in, we're going to start raiding. But as soon as Preach gets back, you're fucking out. Doesn't matter, right? You got to be so careful. And this is why you need to be checking things like Warcraft logs. Make sure before you try and join a guild now that you check Warcraft logs. But if you can get in a raid guild now, that is far better than trying to find one at the launch of Legion. If you try and find a raid guild at the launch of Legion, every single day, essentially, every single day, you are like a week behind raiders who are in a raid guild. And I'm not fucking joking. I'm not joking. Once Legion starts, on day one, every day you are not part of a raid guild, you are like a week behind. And if you haven't found a raid guild within like 2 weeks, you might as well write off that tier. You're going to be pugging or in some shit guild. That is the likelihood of it, unless you have a guaranteed spot somewhere. So if you can, find a raid guild now, but please check Warcraft logs. Please check those guys are raiding regularly. If you start seeing things like they raided Wednesday, they tell you their raid days like Wednesday, Thursday, Sunday, and you see things like, well, they didn't raid Wednesday, they raided Thursday. They didn't raid Sunday, and then they raided Wednesday, but didn't raid Thursday, and then they didn't raid Sunday. No, because they're missing lots of people. Lots of people. Do you think the solution to this being overpowered could be to, rather than putting 200k bubbles on the target, they increase the target's HP by 200k? Same effect, but the damage still happens and healers can do something other than overheal. No. Because that makes... the back end of that is that it makes boss mechanics really tricky. Because they have to then... if you're going to give a tank, for example, or a player 200k more HP. Now, we have to be relative here. This could be 2% more HP, probably not. Or like 20 or 30%. If you can have a class in the raid that can do that, you have to build mechanics around the fact that that class... the tanks are going to have that effect on them. Right? They already do that. If you look at... what was the boat bitches in Black Rock Foundry? The boat bitches, that last guy, especially on Mythic, was designed around a Dis Priest being in the raid. Because every time he did damage to the tank, that damage was then spread out through the raid. And it was a lot of damage on Mythic, right? So they have to design around it, which is why 20 man is very cool, but they have to design around that ability being in the raid. Because otherwise, that ability makes no sense. You can't have that. So you can't just randomly have people having way more HP. Because that just fucks up everything else. No mechanics work at that point. Because you can't balance around it not being there. Which is pretty terrible. Thank you to Greg for your donation as well. I'm glad you're having fun, guys. I'm glad you're having fun. I might have to get another beer, though. Do you have any idea what the Legion pre-event will be? Nah. Hopefully something better. I think we can probably answer that a little bit more than me being really dismissive. We could probably say something hopefully better than Warlords. Which was that... I remember the video. I remember I made that video... and they took down that content almost immediately. Like an hour after I released the video. That content came out. I got onto the server. Played that content. Made my video on it. Released the video. And then that server came down. Like that content was just disabled immediately. Because it was so bad. But they never changed it. They just left it as it was. But it was really bad. That could also be an answer to this 1 year life cycle. It's like they just didn't have time to create something new. This content is being really badly received. Right? So... this content is being really badly received. Just turn it off, and we'll just keep it the way it is. I mean, it was nothing like the zombie invasion. Only real try-hard. Honestly, if you complain about the zombie invasion, you were just being a bitch. It was fun. It was silly. It was a great laugh, right? And the Deathwing one with Deathwing randomly killing you, that was really cool. Like, Deathwing just came and burned the whole zone. That was awesome, man. That was so fucking awesome. And then we got the WOD one. Yeah, that's my answer to that. What do you currently think of the Retribution Paladin damage output? I don't really have an answer for that. I haven't really tracked it, honestly. I don't want to give you guys answers I haven't got a solid answer for. If it's really specific about damage numbers, I'm probably not going to be able to answer you right now. I do know that Ret Paladins were incredibly tied to their set bonuses. I don't know if that's changed, but I was speaking to our Ret Paladin. He's a very, very cool guy. And I think it was like 45% DPS increase or something ridiculous from the set bonuses, which is just fucking bizarre. So yeah, and stuff like that I really don't like. I really, really don't like it. But if you're after specific numbers from me, I'm probably not the best person to talk to, because I don't look at DPS in terms of the numbers. I really don't. That's just not the way DPS works in Warlords of Draenor. It's very difficult to convince people to change their mindset on how DPS works, because the damage meter is just staring at you in the face, and everybody has one. So, I mean, I went on like a week-long... I did DPS week. It was a week long. I did DPS week where I tried the utmost to get you guys, my audience, to look at DPS from a different angle. We were successful in a lot of ways there. But, yeah, it's very difficult. If artifacts are going to be in the game, what do you think the legendary of this expansion will be? I think we should stick with Blizzard's current stance on that there probably won't be a legendary. Thank God. It's about time we reset the legendaries, right? Yeah, I'm more than happy with that being the case, is that legendaries just stop. Essentially, they just stop. So, yeah, I think they'll use the artifact weapons as a clear distraction from legendaries being in the game. They've gone too far down the rabbit hole with legendaries, and it needs to stop. The ring is terrible. They didn't give a fuck about that ring. They didn't give two fucks about that ring. Made obvious by the fact they didn't know what it was going to do. Nothing more clear than that is that they just didn't know what it was going to do. I'm not going away. I'm just blowing my nose, guys, because I'm going to start sounding really nasally. I've been ill for a couple of weeks. 1 second. Welcome back. I feel better. I feel better. If Blizzard decides to implement a system that allows you to make your own scenarios and dungeons and raids, is there a game changer or just suck balls? We're not getting that. We're not getting that. Player-designed environments? No. I don't think so. I don't think WoW could even support that, honestly. It's just the... No, the system doesn't support that. If they did that, it'd be interesting, but... Most of you have probably... maybe not, actually. What was the game where you could build your own castle and people could invade it and all that kind of stuff? I can't remember what it was an EA game. The problem is, most of us just aren't that fucking creative, right? We're not. We're not. And sometimes you got to accept that. We're not. We might think that you gave us access... You might think that with all the experience and knowledge I have, you gave me open access to a fucking build your own raid or whatever, and I would come with something pretty cool. Probably not. Probably not. I'm a puzzle solver. I don't create the puzzles. I like solving the puzzles. That's what I like doing. And, yeah, I mean, yeah, Minecraft's probably a better example, actually. Minecraft would be a far better example. You look at Minecraft, and most things people make are fucking shit. They fucking shit. So people might have fun making it, but at that point you're probably playing The Sims and nobody's going to help you out. So there you go. Yeah, I don't know. It'd be like Mario Maker is now. You probably sift through. I mean, names are starting to spread. Thank God, thanks to the internet, right? People are starting to spread the names of the level designers who are fucking awesome, and that's starting to happen. But if you didn't have that kind of resource at hand and you weren't actively seeking out the best level designers, most of Mario Maker is dog shit. Like the amount of levels I've seen people run where it's just taken 10 seconds to throw a fucking. That's just 10 seconds to throw a level together and been like, oh yeah, shit, dude, I've uploaded my fucking Minecraft map, dude. I'm fucking amazeballs. Let me turn that on. Thank you very much to Ryan for your donation. I'll turn the tracker on because it's just it's easier for me. Thank you, dudes. Legendary ring time. Best idea you'd like to see implemented in WoW. The best game-changing thing. Okay, here's an interesting one. I talked about this a little bit during stream week, or stream day, I should say, where we streamed some Mario. The best change I would look to see in WoW is to really stop sticking to these rigid ideas. There is no reason that out-of-raid content needs to be 5-man. Absolutely no reason at all. The LFD system makes it pointless to stick to something like 5. I would really, and I think it would be tremendous for the game, love to see new dungeons that vary between size between 10 and 5, right? So you could have 10, 7, and 5, or whatever you want to do. Some of the 10-man raids can involve just one tank. That alleviates a lot of the queue problems that go on and all that kind of stuff. And certainly re-implement the vanilla system where the dungeons can be done by more people than intended, but for slightly lesser rewards. Because that system was glorious in vanilla. Absolutely glorious. Doing UBRS 15-man when it was designed for 10 was fantastic. And I do not mean flex. I do not mean flex. Flex is good for raiding, not for dungeons. Flex is good for raiding, not for dungeons, in my opinion. I would certainly like a system like that. I don't see why we have to be... What will the 5-man content be? Why can't we have... I mean, because we had ZG as a 20-man fun raid. Right? It was a bit of fun at the weekend. Wasn't too hard. You could get 20 gangsters in there. All very fucking cool, right? Why does it have to be 5 and then raid? 5 and then you're in a raid. Why? It doesn't need to be that way. You could create way more interesting stuff. So, my idea is simple. Let's say you take Mythic difficulty. Most of us don't find Mythic hard. Whatever's your poison. Some people do, some people don't. But you say there's a Mythic dungeon. It's 5-man. You can't queue for that through LFD, right? You have to find your own group, and then you can go and do the Mythic dungeon. Why not add that Mythic difficulty with its level rewards to the LFD, but it's 10-man? So it's that kind of scaling. So obviously it needs tweaking a bit in terms of its difficulty or whatever, but you could do it 5-man, have 50% less people to roll against, right? 50% less people, but it's harder. You've got to do it 5-man. But if you're in a guild run or found some friends because you've been doing it like that, or you're geared up a lot more, it makes total sense to me to start implementing systems like that. I would love to see that. Absolutely love to see that. Do you feel that Blizzard... I'm picking as they go. You can see there's a lot of questions, I guess. Do you feel that that Blizzard will have to cap out artifact weapons per tier to stop people from no-lifing and getting immensely more powerful? I would expect... In my honest opinion, I would expect you to cap your artifact weapon mid-expansion at the latest. Everything after that will be purely cosmetic. Everything will be purely cosmetic. And that's fine. That's okay. Because people might be like, oh, I want to keep working on it. You can, but for cosmetic rewards. And you can do that through different things. So you might want to work on your artifact weapon by going through PvP, prestiging. You can do all that kind of stuff. These are all the kind of different doors that are opening to us right now. And I think that's fantastic. But in terms of the talents rewards, I would actually be really surprised if you don't cap it out in the first tier, or even before you start raiding, because it's got perks in it, right? It's got perks in it that you might need for raiding, so you can't hold them away for too long. They need to go into it, and then everything after that is probably really cosmetic, and that's fine. I'm purely fine with that. There's a good chance I'll PvP in Legion, given the current state of things. I'll prestige all fucking day. I don't give a shit about arena. I don't give a fuck about any of that. If something's really cool, I might be tempted to go in the arena and get it, right? I'm certainly capable of getting it. I have no problem doing that. But right now, I have no incentive to do that other than to get really frustrated. But if I know there's an end goal, and I think this is important, because arena just keeps going and going and going. If I know there's an end goal, like once I prestige this far, then I don't have to do it anymore. I'm okay with that. I might put in the time in my off time to log in and do some BGs and prestige, because I don't mind that kind of content. If there's an end goal and the reward's worth it, if that's my favourite artifact transmog, sure, I'll fucking probably do that. Do you think artifact weapons will severely gimp returning players? No, for the reasons I just stated. Is that the perks, or whatever, will be unlocked very, very quickly. And then the cosmetics of stars. And if any returning player says, oh, I'm being held back because I don't have a cosmetic perk, then they're a fucking idiot and you don't want to play with them anyway, right? So yeah, the perks and stuff will probably be really quick. I would be surprised if it doesn't take too much time at all. I'd be really surprised. I think they're pretty good. Bridger, I've been maining Enhancement since Late Miss. In what place do you think the spec is and how to improve them, bring something back? I like where Enhancement is right now. I do. It's in the best place it's been for me for a very, very long time. For like a really, really long time. And I know August is probably in the chat and he's laughing because he knows this too. But I disliked Enhancement for every point up until this expansion. Where they're going with it now is probably they could still do with dropping some spells. They could still definitely do with dropping some spells from Enhancement to make the ones that they have far more interesting. Because everything with Enhancement does like 4 things, right? All the spells Enhancement has does so many different fucking things. I certainly don't like Fire Nova spam. It's kind of fun the first time, but after that it just gets really annoying. And plus it's a niche nobody really needs. Nobody really needs that niche. So I think that's the best way to go. I need some mouse. Oh my god, you guys and your questions. No room for me to cry, okay. Do you remember that Blizzard actually told us before WoD's release that they would make a legendary weapon for Mythic Raiders at the end of WoD? Look how well that turned out. There's a lot of things with WoD that didn't go well. I wouldn't be bitter about WoD. I did try and call this out. Yeah, we've got a fair reason to be pissed at Blizz about WoD. The best way you can express that is to just be cautious with your pre-order of Legion. And I would say that to all of you. Is WoD made mistakes. We all got burned. There was never a time when I would consider from a consumer standpoint. But you know my job, so I will be pre-ordering Legion. But from a pure consumer standpoint, yeah, I'd be holding back on my pre-order. That's how you let Blizzard really know. Is that you fucked up in WoD. You fucked me in WoD. I mean, I enjoy the ratings, so I'm kind of okay with WoD. But for a lot of people, that's not the case. So, you don't... like when they go, right, Legion pre-order is out... Don't buy it because of double jump, right? Don't buy it because of fucking double jump. Just like hold back and be like, yeah, show me more. Wait till people like me get into the alpha and start showing you things, right? That you want to see, that you're interested in. Let me and like, I mean, we've already spoken with Nobble about this. Wait till Nobble goes in and explores the story. Does it make any fucking sense? Wait till I go in there and get in there mechanically. That has worked tremendously well for both of us in the past. Is to let me go in one direction and show you this stuff. This is how this works. This is how a fucking Demon Hunter works. Do I think you'll like this? What does it feel like to play? Does it just feel like a fucking Demon Hunter? Right? Just hold back in your pre-order. When Blizzard goes, if Blizzard put Legion on pre-order at BlizzCon, wait. Go, whoa, motherfucker. Hold the fuck on. Let me see everything. Just look at how much information came out of Gamescom weeks after. Weeks after. Right? Like 2 weeks after that fucking 3-day weekend, we were still getting new information that came from that event. Just hold. You don't need... It's a digital copy. Just hold back. I can't see them doing some sort of Diablo shenanigans with us ever again, where they gave us Diablo 3 for free if you bought like a year or whatever the fuck it was. You know, that fucking crazy nonsense. I can't see that happening, so just wait. Don't. And if they see that their pre-orders are usually like 4 or 5 million or something fucking crazy like that, their pre-orders are usually through the roof, and this time it's like 2 million, they're like, we really fucked up in WoD. We can't afford to do that again. They might already think that, but you show them the numbers and you'll be fine. Yes, August, I'm saying pre-order now. We cleared Heroic Hellfire Citadel with an 11-man group with only a dispute. That's pretty impressive. That's not easy to do. We want to do Mythic, but don't have the numbers. How would you feel about flex to a max of 25? Absolutely not, Calibor. Mythic should never, ever, 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 ever be flex, and that's not me being egotistical. There are balance and design reasons for that. Mythic is set for a reason. For a reason. And that's absolutely true. Whether people choose to believe it or not, because this conversation comes up probably every week. We see somebody else saying Mythic should be flex. No, there are balance and design reasons. The fights I've listed already could not exist in a flexible environment. They just cannot exist. So, no, absolutely not. Shouldn't do that. Mythic should always... The highest level of difficulty should always be a set amount of players. So Blizzard can calculate what should be in that raid. It's more important to design to know who will be doing it. You can't do that with flex. You cannot do it. So it just makes the fights worse. What you're actually asking for, whether you know it or not, is for shitter fights. And I know that sounds really like that's one-sided, but honestly, if you start adding flex to like the highest difficulty, you're just asking for shitter fights. You're just asking for shitter fights. That's all you're asking for. As a content creator, albeit vastly different from the typing question here, how do you feel about people making similar content to you? Personally, I really want to make lore videos, but because of the novel, more or less concerning cornering the market, I feel I'd be stepping on some toes there. No. YouTube works this way. Survival of the fittest. It's as simple as that. And there are many, many, many imitators of me out there now. Right? But at the same time, sometimes we start passing the torch. like I'm passing the torch now of the guide stuff. I started my job. I started doing guides because I hated every single YouTube guide. I hated them all. I looked for a guide on a rogue, and what I found was some fucking dipshit stood in front of a training dummy going, you got 5 combo points, and then you press Visivate. And it was like a 30-second video. And I was like, that explains to me nothing. And because I had all this back knowledge of how the game works, I was like, that's just not the way it works. The way this business works is really simple. You make a better video than the last guy. You make a better video. And if you're a lore guy, for example, you watch Nobble's videos, and you're like, this video would be so much better if it was done this way. In your opinion, right? Because it's all subjective. If this video was made this way, it'd be miles better, in my opinion. Make that fucking video. Just do it and put it out there. It takes ages. It takes absolutely ages. It takes forever to people to notice you. It takes absolutely forever. Absolutely forever. But just stick to it. Do it for fun. For the love of Christ, none of you in this chat think you could just get into this business. No. Or try and start streaming or something like that. There's so much heartache that comes from that because people expect like fast results. It's only like 12 months to get noticed. To earn 40 quid. That's like $80 or something fucking stupid at the time. It took me like a year of working 2 jobs to get 40 quid out of it. For real. That's the true story. And I went out and bought a microphone. I remember the day. It took me a year. I was working 2 jobs. I was doing YouTube and I was working my day job, which had me traveling up and down the country. You'll probably remember I was doing videos of me looking at a camera phone all the way up and down while driving to my other job. It takes that kind of dedication, guys, which is why I'm genuinely envious of those of you who like have so much free time. I'm genuinely envious because I had to do it while I already had like an important job and it was hard. It was hard. Are you going to make a survival hunt a try? Yes. I will try everything. In terms of the guides, I have it on display. I shit you not. I shit you not. My first ever payment from YouTube was 40 quid. And what I bought with it, I have on display on my display shelf. No, there's no dicks there, is there? No. There's my display shelf there. You can see a lightsaber, and you can just see, under the bottom half of the TV, a white Blue Yeti snowball microphone. Next to a Yoshi, which was a gift. I have it on display. It was an important day for me. A really important day for me. So, yeah, that was the first thing I bought. I bought it from PC World as well and got ripped off royally. But, yeah. Good memories on there. I just hit 12 out of 13 Mythic in Hellfire Citadel. This is my first time pushing top tier content. My question is, when do I get the WoW fangirls? Never. Never. You get them when you stick your face in front of the camera. As ugly as probably some of you think I am, you should see some of my emails. Ooh, scary. Scary. I should leave my wife. That was the best email I ever got. I should leave my wife because I will treat you better. Crazy shit. Hey, bro. You're nicking that tomorrow, bro. You're not nicking. You're going to nick my memory. You're going to steal my memory. Cheers, man. Cheers, man. Thanks, bro. Breach, do you think that Blizz should make player pets and guardians in raid environments to other players invisible? You should have the choice. You should have the choice. You should absolutely have the choice to turn your graphics down to the point where you can't see other people's spells. If your PC is that bad, have the choice. I would absolutely rather someone turn off fucking pets than die because their FPS was too low. Abso-fucking-lutely. Abso-fucking-lutely. I'd love to see that. Do you think the level cap will continue? Yes, absolutely. They will just make it faster and faster to get there, which is a shame. I don't think it needs to be faster, but I can see why it's off-putting. When you start hitting numbers like 100 and 110, right? And you, I understand why they speed it up, but there's so much actually good content in the old world now that it's kind of a shame. Thank you, Wendy. I appreciate it. Which I also have Wendy's t-shirt on display when I don't wear it. How do you see the healing model going forward? I don't know. I think healing's fucked. I don't mean to be so off the cuff with that remark. I really don't. But I do think healing is fucked. I think healing is fucked. Unless you really like it, which is what most healers I find tend to just really like healing. I think mana itself is fucked. Absolutely fucked as a resource system. Because it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. I think the model they have now is about as good as it's going to get. And that model is that if things go wrong, you simply cannot out-heal the problems. Let me explain to you why healing changed in WoD. It became very apparent when they made mana an issue and all the kind of stuff that we had in early Warlords of Draenor, right? You might remember when you started healing in early Warlords of Draenor, you had all these kind of issues. It became very apparent that that only really punished the worst teams. Like, the better your team was at not taking damage, then the more mana your healers have and the easier time you have. Right? So, when they make it, like, difficult to have, when they make it so that incoming damage and your ability to out-heal it is the difficult part, the worse your team is, the slower you progress. And that means that the better your team is, the faster you progress. Now, that sounds kind of normal until you realize that those guys are just are doing that fight in a far easier condition. Because their healers always have more mana. They're always having an easier time than you are. And it just punishes the worst players unnecessarily, who probably need the extra helping hand. So I like the healing model kind of how it is, which is there are things to counter and predict. I love that healing is a predictive cycle throughout a fight. It's very, very cool. It's better than... reactive healing has always been the worst. Predictive healing is better. It's one of the advantages of being disc because it's like pure predictive. That scary moments are known and incoming. And that if your team makes mistakes, it's not a case that you don't have the mana, so to speak, but you simply can't out-heal those problems. And therefore, that's why you're going to wipe. The healers are designed to keep you alive in situations you should be able to deal with, rather than carry you out of extreme messes. But you should always be possible to at least survive one, but that's why you have things like Tranquility. Not really Divine Hymn, but you have those major cooldowns. So, but overall, I don't think healing is going to get anything really interesting going on for it. I'm genuinely serious. I don't see it happening in many games, to be honest. I think healing as a system just needs to be the way it is. Do you think artifact weapons will severely gimp returning players? I have answered that question, unfortunately. But no is the answer. Did you even play vanilla? I did. Do you feel Blizzard puts way too much emphasis on tier bonuses making classes? Yeah, what a huge mistake that was in WoD. And that was just incredible to me to see that class or spec defining abilities were given via class bonuses, which meant that everybody who didn't have those tier sets was not playing the same spec. And as you can imagine, that gave a great deal of problem to players who weren't already geared. And it gave a great deal of problems to people like myself who were trying to educate players in how to play their class. Because I made this point before Hellfire Citadel launched is, do I do a guide based on no tiers, or all three, or what? How do we do this? Because you're playing essentially a different class at that point. A warrior, an arms warrior, probably pre-nerf, but similar, who doesn't have the tier bonuses and the Archimon trinket is playing an entirely different class. And that's ridiculous. It should never, ever be that case. You should grow in power, but not completely alter the playstyle, like to the point of absurdity, which is what they did this time around. I didn't like it, personally. Preach, do you think if Blizzard expanded upon the time walking in Legion and add Cataclysm Heroics, that it'd be good to it'd be good for the feature and attract people that would otherwise not wish to do it because of the possibility of being more difficult in BC Wrath time walking dungeons? Do you think if Blizzard... Let me read that again. Sorry, GeoBoy. Preach, do you think if Blizzard expand upon time walking in Legion and add Cataclysm Heroics, that it could be good for the feature and attract people that would otherwise not wish to do it because of the possibility of it being more difficult in the BC Wrath time walking dungeons? In terms of time walking, for me, time walking only appeals as in it's something you want to do, right? And I mean this in terms of more than once. It only appeals to those who haven't done those dungeons before. And I don't mean including leveling in that situation. I'm not including leveling because where you kind of dip in and dip out. If you played the expansion that dungeon came from, then time walking is absurdly dull content in my eyes. Almost to the point of ridiculousness. Because the dungeons not only are nowhere near what they were like, because talent systems change a dungeon as much as changing a boss mechanic, and they're just absurd. Absurdly dull, boring content. I will never, ever, ever support the addition of rehashed content. The closest they ever got to trying to make me convinced that it could work was Scarlet Monastery, which essentially like changed them completely. Rehashed content only appeals to those people who didn't do it in the first place. I don't want to go and do content I've already done before. I just don't want to do that. I want new content every time. Because for me, rehashed content appeals to people who never did it before or never did it properly. But new content appeals to absolutely everybody. Right? There's nobody who can have a complaint against brand new content being dull, like before it even launches. When they said they were doing the TBC time walking stuff, I was already bored. I did those dungeons hundreds of times when it was relevant, and I don't want to do it. Which is exactly my point on private servers as well. I did actually get a lot of negative feedback because people misunderstood the joke. I want to make that important. But believing that I hate private servers. I don't hate private servers, and I'll be honest with you, if there was an expansion that I missed in World of Warcraft, I would probably play that private server for a reasonable amount of time just to see what that was like and get an idea for it, because I love the game. I absolutely love the game. And certainly if I was bored and say WoD, WoD's not interesting me, but I never played TBC, I would certainly be interested in going to a TBC private server. Absolutely be interested in doing that. The only reason I don't care about private servers, and that's the real truth, I don't care, is because I've already done that content. I've done it. I'm passed on it. I did it for the entire duration it existed. So I don't want to go back. There's no nostalgia for me there. I remember it quite clearly. I made it my job to go back and ham over those ideas and remember it step by step. Okay. Do you think Blizzard will start paying more attention to the top end PvE players in light of recent esports efforts? No. No. Top end PvE is a selling point and nothing more, and that's about it because there's so very, very, very few. What do you consider top end? Top 100? Top 50? Top 20? Top 10? I mean, every time you do that, you're down to like, you're down to like a 250 people essentially. You're down to those kind of numbers, and it's just you can't cater to those guys. You just can't. As much as when I was a very egotistical top end player, I hated that they weren't catering towards us. It totally makes sense that they don't, because there's just so few people doing it. And my wife and baby are here. Yay, you okay? You going to... Oh, welcome back, everybody. Sorry for the delay. I was just putting the wife and baby in the bed and all that kind of stuff. Hey, Noxstrand, Deathborn. So, continue on. You guys have asked some great questions tonight, actually. I was unsure how this would go, but you've done really, really, really cool. It's now really, really hot in here as well. I've cleared my nose and my phlegm. So, whoa, many questions. Many questions. Thank you so much. Thank you to the guys who sent me donations, Manny Major, and of course, you know who you are for the other one. Thank you, my man. Thank you. You guys have been long-time supporters. Since you played on a US server at one time, I did for a very, very short period of time. Do you have any advice for a US player moving to the EU for it to work or keep raiding and enjoy, for work, to keep raiding and enjoy the server? That's a good question. Probably not the best person to ask. The only time I played on a US server... Oh, let me turn the music down a bit. The only time I played on a US server was to PvP on Genji's Rogue. And that was it. That was it. So, yeah, not the best person to ask. Just make sure... I wouldn't make it your top priority. Obviously, get settled at home first. It'd be nice to have the creature comforts like World of Warcraft. We don't have to join a raid. What a difficult time to move over, Misogi, though, because you're going to move during the Legion transition as well, more than likely, I would imagine. That's going to be difficult, dude. I probably can't give you exact advice on that one. Where do you want the class order halls to be for each class? Oh, God, I have no idea. Most of the ones I've seen so far seem pretty correct. The Rogue one still baffles me. As much as some people are on board with it, it still baffles me. I don't really care, if I'm being honest. I don't really care. And so, yeah, that's the thing. I don't really care that much about it. So, it's not a huge deal to me. It's not a huge deal to me. The class halls don't inspire me a lot. I think the class halls will be extremely gimmicky. Like, very, very, very gimmicky to start with. Maybe it'll develop into something in the future. This is the next progression on from garrisons, as you probably know. I would expect them to still be pretty gimmicky. If Blizzard had not stopped working on Titan, what do you think that would have meant for WoW? What does it mean now? I don't think we can ever put an answer on that, Tommy. Honestly. because we don't really know what Titan was. Now, my sources at Blizzard, I know, what do I sound like? My sources at Blizzard told me that it was simply just trying to do everything, which meant it made no sense by the end. The amount of stuff they were trying to make work in Titan was so absurdly large in scale and breadth, in terms of, like, I think there was time travel. I heard things about time travel involved, all kinds of crazy stuff that they were trying to squeeze into it, and it just didn't make sense. Like, what they had was like, this is just not working at all. But we don't know what Titan was, so without knowing what the basis or foundation was for real, like, as a confirmation, I don't think we could say. I think my adage during Mists of Pandaria, which was when so many MMOs were trying to kill WoW, and I've said this many times, but probably not during Warlords of Draenor, is the only people who can kill WoW are Blizzard themselves. And that's either by releasing an MMO which squashes WoW, or by making too many mistakes like they've done with WoD, which I believe Final Fantasy 14, I could be wrong on the number, is now equal with World of Warcraft in terms of subscriber numbers, I believe. I could be wrong, but that's what I read today. And that's down to Blizzard. I don't think, after so many attempts have been made on Blizzard's WoW life, right? Like, so many threats have come out and they've squashed them all. When WoW does die, I don't think any game will be able to say, oh, we were the ones that did it. Because we're past a decade now of millions of people playing the game. And if when WoW does die, you can bow out gracefully and just say whatever. It might not bow out gracefully. It might go out with another... If like, WoD repeats itself, that probably will spell a pretty bad time. But that's Blizzard killing it, right? That's Blizz killing it themselves. So that's the way I would like to... that's the way I look at it now. I think WoW has more than proved its life to anybody with any reasonable sense. As much as most of the internet were like, oh, WoW's dead now, haha, saw it coming. They've probably been saying that for the last 8 years. But yeah, I always thought that Blizz should add a support role, more akin to supporting how the Swarm operates. Do you think Blizz will ever do it? They should. We did talk about the support role earlier on. They should. It's something that they should do that. They should mix it up a little bit more. I think they backed themselves into a corner a little bit with the Holy Trinity, because game design can only go so far when you say, right, this needs a tank, healer, and DPS. When you start adding in different dynamics like that, when you start adding in different elements, you can start being more creative. You can expand on things quite a lot, and I think that's a good idea. For me, anyway. What would I do to make leveling more fun? Can they change it in such a dramatic way? No. Probably not. They probably can't change leveling in too much of a dramatic way. I would certainly like to see... I think The Witcher 3 is actually a prime example here, as much as everyone quotes it for everything. Levels mean... You have to get leveling to the stage where levels aren't the goal. That's not easy to do. It's really not easy to do. Star Wars The Old Republic did it pretty well, because their story was so engaging that your objective wasn't, I need to get the next level. It was, I want to get to the next part of the story. So in order to make leveling more fun, you have to make leveling not the aim. Right? Leveling should be a byproduct. Similar to gearing. Gearing is a byproduct of raiding. It happens whether you want it to or not. If you raid, you're going to get gear. And that's where many of us go. In terms of leveling, the only way to make it more fun is to make leveling not the objective. But right now, that's very difficult to do in World of Warcraft, because most people don't like any of the systems in place for leveling. Even though WoD was a great leveling experience in my eyes, most people want to get to the top level and start raiding ASAP. We need to burn through the content quicker than we can possibly imagine, right? We need to just wreck through this content straight away. And that's the mindset of most World of Warcraft players. I've got out of it, but it took me like nearly a decade to get out of that mindset. Like with WoD, I didn't care. I'll get to the cap by just playing the game. But that's going to be pretty difficult to do. Do you think they'll be revamping any old Dungeons for Legion? I fucking hope not. Let's just have new stuff. New. They're revamping Violet Hold. They're revamping Violet Hold. We have that confirmed. But hopefully probably in a way that is massively different to what we know Violet Hold of. Because Violet Hold classically was the worst dungeon in Wrath of the Lich King. The absolute worst dungeon. So that revamp should be pretty good. But we do know they are revamping Violet Hold. So there you go. What do you think the Demon Hunter artifact weapon will be? It's just glaives. I think we already know that. What would you like to see mythic? What would you like to see mythic encounters that require you to not have certain roles or classes? No, that's very unfair. For example, a boss that can't be tanked to where healing isn't possible. No, I don't think so, Leadfoot. I think that's just unfair. Some people choose a tank because they don't like DPSing. And I don't think the game should punish you for making that decision when the game is based around making that decision. I think that's a really terrible idea. What I would love to see is more mythic dungeons, more mythic raids that involve the raid splitting into different camps and doing different things. Even if that involves going off completely separately and dealing with stuff on like a 7-man scenario while other people are doing other things. I think that classically, whenever they've designed encounters like that, Sinestra comes to mind, Mythic Blast Furnace comes to mind. When you have lots of different people doing loads and loads of different things, and then re-emerging, like a lot of my favourite bosses ever work that way. Kael'thas Sunstrider worked that way. Throughout that fight, you were dividing your raid into various different roles that were quite literally way out of range of being able to contribute or help in any other ways. And then you had people like running off to help that. So let's say you were dealing with the caster at Kael'thas, but you're assigned... So there's a group of people dealing with that situation. But that situation is struggling, but your other situation is fine, and you have people charging down. That creates a much more interesting situation going on. That can also go very badly, though, when they try to really force it. So you're talking about Spoils of Pandaria, Hellfire Assault, anything that's like, oh, we're dividing the raid here, this is interesting. Not really. It needs to be way more dynamic than that, rather than, oh, you didn't divide properly, so now that team wipes. That doesn't work. But with Blast Furnace and Kael'thas, you could adjust that on the fly, and that makes a far more interesting raid, because it's different each time. Would you like it if Blizzard got rid of catch-up mechanics, making people go through all the raids, all the expansions, and benefit the game? Personally, yes. I don't get. See you later, so. I don't understand why catch-up needs to exist. I don't understand it. From a logical perspective, I don't understand it. And I don't understand why content needs to be skipped or just passed over in favour of the next content. When that wasn't the case, it was fine. The only downside to it was poaching guilds, but it wasn't that big of a deal. It really wasn't. It felt like a big deal if it happened to you, like your guild got raided by like a big guild and started taking a lot of your players. And it certainly led to the development of a lot of feeder guilds. But honestly, feeder guilds existed because some raid leaders and some GMs just wouldn't let their power go and say, fucking hell, maybe it's time I moved on. They were like holding on to their power and stuff like that. If you never did High Maul and you return to the game, you should be starting at High Maul. That content is new to you. It is. That content is new to you. It absolutely is. Right? That's new content for you. You don't need to be joining the game and going to Hellfire Citadel, because there was 2 raids before that, which is still new content for you. And there are many other players who are in the same boat. And then you start getting this progression of guilds going on. And it also builds, and a lot of people don't think this is important as I believe it is. It gives the later raids far more mystique and interest than what they are now. Like, Hellfire Citadel is like accessible through LFR not too long after that raid launches. There's no mystique. There's no anticipation. There's no invigoration. There's no excitement. There's the game lacks a lot of that because of catch-up mechanics, in my eyes, because they just give it to you pretty quickly. And I don't see why that has to exist. I think there's reasons that I'm probably not aware of, as many things are. Like, a lot of my decisions are probably based on information I don't have, right? That could be countered very easily. One of the Blizzard devs could come in and go, hey, well, we do this because of this. Right? We do this because of this. We brought in the catch-up system because people found it too far behind. But I don't buy that. I don't buy that at all. This is a reason, like, Nax Ramus had such mystique about it, and why it was considered such an amazing thing to get there. Because before that, you had to work so hard to get there. But the Black Temple and Illidan awaited you, right? It was there. It was in the game. And you could look at that now and say, Archimonde awaits you. But you've got to earn the right to get there. You've got to fight your way through it to get there. And you went on this journey, and we talked a lot about the journey in Mists of Pandaria, is you had that journey. You went on a journey. And you can say, you can either have 2 stories. So let me ask you guys, what's your Warlords of Draenor story? And you probably don't have enough time to type it out in here without it flying past, unfortunately. But I'd love you to email me. What is your Warlords story? And it can go one of two ways, depending on whether catch-up exists. Your Warlords of Draenor story could come and you were like, I joined late in the game. So I joined a guild that was just a bunch of returning players and some old ones. This guild existed, but I hadn't really managed to pass through Highmaul. So I stepped into Highmaul midway through the expansion. But I beat Highmaul. Then this guild kind of stuck together. We eventually got the guys together and we moved into Blackrock Foundry. And we'd heard so much about Blackrock Foundry. We knew a lot about Blackrock Foundry, but we weren't ready to get there yet. So we stepped into Blackrock Foundry and we got there. But during this time, we just killed Kara. Or we just killed Imperator. But at the same time, Method and Paragon had killed Archimonde. I mean, that was dead. But my journey was just beginning. And off I went and did that. Now, I might make that sound more epic than it is. But the other side of the story could be, and probably is to this day, is I joined the game, I went to Tanaan Jungle, I got into a guild, and then I went and did Archimonde. It can be as easy as that for many, many people now. And for me, I know which one I prefer. And I believe, and this is why a lot of people get on my ass about this, but I believe it's better for them. That's why I say it. It doesn't matter to me, I'm an endgame raider, right? So it makes no odds to me. I think you would have a better play experience that way. I think you would be more interested in the game if there was something that you weren't going to achieve in the next 3 weeks. Regardless of whether your guild cleared it or whether you did it in LFR. I think if you don't have that anticipation. Because when I started like serious raid. Because I joined in like alpha and beta and vanilla, right? But then I left, and you guys probably know this story, or some of you do. I left and then I came back. And when I came back, Blackwing Lair was out, but AQ40 was on the horizon kind of time-ish, you know what I mean? And I had a whole journey where I had to travel pretty quickly, but I did that by... And I recall distinctly asking raiders, like, what was it like to fight Ragnaros? What is that like? Because we couldn't see it. LFR didn't exist. You would see a video, but then you'd ask the question, like, what is it like when Ragnaros comes out of that fire? What is that like? And then you saw people... A huge moment in World of Warcraft history for raiders was the guild. I believe it might have been something from Alakir. It might have been Darkstorm or maybe Stature of the Gods, something like that. Or maybe someone else. I'm trying to remember the top vanilla guilds. I know it wasn't Nihilum or Death and Taxes. It was somebody I knew or knew of because I was on their server. I released the video of Saffron farming. Now, we were raiding Blackwing Lair, right? But way down the road here, some guild just released a video because the 4 horsemen had died of Saffron farming. And it was about 10 seconds. And it was like, fuck me, do I want to get there soon? It wasn't, fuck me, I can't wait till LFR comes out in a couple of weeks and I can do it, right? I can't wait to do that. What do I think about split runs? Awful. Worst thing ever. One of the reasons I absolutely lost my flavor for raiding. Without question. Without question. The only time I really invested in it was Cataclysm, where I was leveling because raid cooldowns had just become a thing. Very different. Raid cooldowns had just become a thing. And we didn't know that was going to happen. Very difficult, because we built our guilds... Interestingly enough, I built my guild, because I was the guild master in Cataclysm, on bring the player, not the class. There was a certain amount of class balance, but it was more about bring the player, not the class. So I chose people, and that's the class they played. So I chose like a guy named Marathi. Marathi was a rep Paladin. There was no question about that, right? I chose a guy called Erebus. He was a warrior. I chose these people, and we never gave much thought to it. So we had things like 2 druids in our 10-man guild and stuff like that. And then it became apparent that you really couldn't do 10-man... The robots, the fucking robots. I can't remember the name. The 4 robots, like the toxic one and the fucking arcane one. Those robots. You couldn't really do them without a disc priest. And the only priest we had was a shadow priest, and he didn't want to heal, right? He was a DPSer. He was a good DPSer. He was one of the world's best DPSers. I've been fortunate enough to play with some of the world's best players, and I have no doubts about that. Omnitron. And you couldn't do it without it. You just couldn't do it without a disc priest. It was as simple as that. You just couldn't do it. So I then re-rolled disc priest, and we started doing split runs to gear people up and all this kind of shit. And ultimately, it was like ruined the game. But within like 3 months, I'd already played like 12 months worth of farm. Fucking shite. So, yeah. But it's never going to go away unless they force you to be, like, account locked. Which I don't think they will ever do. Like, they'll never do that. Because how can you tell people not to play more? Right? Whose decision is that? It's not Blizzard's. It's not Blizzard's decision to tell you how often you can play. And as long as there is always a method of gaining more gear, endgame raiders will do that. But as I said earlier, endgame raiders are so few that it really doesn't affect you. And you should know if you're going to step up to that level, you'd be a moron not to expect to do that kind of thing. Right? But for me, I'm not doing it. I'm not fucking doing it. Fuck that. No way. If my guild starts split runs, I'll be like, alright, good luck with that then. See you later. I'm not fucking doing it. I'm not like burning through content twice as fast as I have to. Fuck that shit. No way. Do you think they'll ever do the caster? Sure. Why not? Never say never. Never ever say never. Never do it. I have 14 capped characters. Dude. What? And I've always enjoyed leveling them, but I feel like I'm missing out as I can't concentrate in gear and main. Yeah, typical problem with being like an alcoholic, as it's nicknamed, is doing that. You have to force it. It's as simple as that. You have to absolutely force yourself to be a main. And by doing that, I don't mean delete your alts by any means, but you should just be doing stuff on your main. And what you'll find is you genuinely start getting a lot more extra little cosmetic and fun stuff and reputations and stuff that you can't really get on your alts, and you start sticking around it more. But you do have to force it. You do have to force it and make sure you do things. And there's no other advice I can give you than you have to push yourself to do it. It's like changing from a clicker to a keybinder. You have to force it. Because if you don't force it, you just won't change. You won't change. Okay. We're doing about another 15 minutes because that's going to hit midnight and I have to get up in like a few hours for my son's birthday. What do you think about melee range discrepancy regarding boss mechanics? I feel like a lot of fights are nigh impossible if you have more than X number of melee, and it's getting worse every expansion. It's actually gotten much better. Not to crap on your idea, but it has actually got way better. Melee has been absolutely fine through Warlords of Draenor. Has there been an occasion where melee wasn't just absolutely fine in Warlords? No, I don't think so. I think melee has been fine through all of WoD. I might be missing something, but I mean, there's always going to be a sway one way or the other, but there's been far more occasions in Warlords of Draenor where it's actually swayed in melee's favour. In many occasions, many occasions. Sometimes it goes wrong, and they fix it. Blackhand, melee was fine. That was more classes at Blackhand. I would say that was more a class thing. Like, there was no problem with bringing like 3 rogues and shit to Blackhand. There was no problem with melee at Blackhand. There was a problem with classes at Blackhand. Hands of France, fine as melee, no problem with that. Valhari, fine as melee. Blackhand, no, that's wrong. Blackhand was class problems. I don't think so. But we can look at past expansions and easily start raking off the numbers, right? With probably the most notorious. I'd be interested to say, what was the most notorious anti-melee fight ever? Texas was fine as melee. Texas was actually better for melee, because casters just couldn't cast. Whereas melee were just shredding the fucking place to pieces. I would have added way more. Orgorger needed melee. Was like mandatory melee. Rogues were a little imbalanced, but other melee were fine as well. We suffered. Some suffered. Enhancement shamans, warriors. You couldn't. We had 6 melee on our first Blackhand kill, and that was there was no nerfs there. No, not true. Firefighter. Firefighter was a pain in the ass for melee, but you weren't overly punished. Nobody knows. That's curious. Nobody's got the right answer yet. There is a very, 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 very famous anti-melee boss. Yeah. Very, very famous. But, yeah, Blackhand was... no, I don't agree with that. Blackhand was class problems. We had loads of melee. And we're fine. Absolutely fine. Our melee were fine. Even our warrior was fine. He just had to be in defensive stance, but that's what that fight demanded, so no worries. No. No one. No, Muru. Muru was actually anti-caster. Besides the fact that you needed 2 Shadow Priests, mages were good for spell steal. Muru was fine. Muru was actually nerfed to help casters because people were bringing too many melee. Whether or not you realise that, Muru was pushing back spellcasters in its Zerg phase, which was a problem. Probably somebody said it and I've missed it. You can see how quickly the chat is flying, but yeah. The actual answer is Ascendant Council. Ascendant Council Heroic. Ascendant Council was pretty bad. Pretty bad for melee. Malygos. Malygos, the achievement. I would say Malygos is a good answer, but Malygos was the achievement. Malygos was the achievement. Which is, you know, it's come see, come sa. Nah, Falmus was fine as melee. No problem. No problem. I think a lot of that's... I mean, it's kind of interesting is that some people exaggerate it a little bit, how bad some situations are for melee. It really depends. Like, Malygos... I mean, even Malygos for the achievement was actually not very anti-melee because DKs were overpowered there. So, I mean, they're still melee if you want to look at it that way. It had class problems, but Grip was pretty crazy. Uro wasn't that bad. I mean, if your hunters could manage the threat properly, no, that was a hunter thing. No, melee was fine. You could take a lot of warriors and rogues and shit to Uro. That was fine. Okay, let's move on anyway. But Deathwing Spy? No, you wanted as many sub-rogues as possible there. And warriors. Crazy burst. That was a burst fight. That wasn't an anti-melee fight by any means. Is it possible for Blizz to make both high skill cap classes choices and maintain target casual play base? Personally, I have no fun with simplified classes and no control in my hands. I understand what you're saying, Sandarine, but I truly believe that no one ever... we talked about this earlier about being when you become a great player, is that you're always learning. Always learning. I talked about this in the threat feedback video as well, is how one player changed my whole thought process on DPS and like opened my mind to so many possibilities that like, wow, I can push this. Even on shitty fights, I should be pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. And next week I should push harder than that. And the week after that I should push harder than that. There's always a high skill cap, but that can be diminished, right? I mean, there's no doubt about that. Some classes are easier than others, and I think it would be crazy to try and argue one way or the other. If you're trying to argue that, good on you, but some classes are easier than others. I think they've got the model kind of right with most of the classes. Not all of them, most of the classes. Which is a casual player will do 90%, 90 or maybe 80, right? As long as he's got a kind of understanding. I mean, they took a lot of the shit spells out, so we no longer see things like Assassination Rogues using Eviscerate, which was a weird thing that was happening for a long time because you had Envenom and Eviscerate on your fucking in your spellbook, so people were getting confused. And so they got rid of all that shit, which was basically their fault, right? Those players shouldn't have access to those spells because it makes no fucking sense. So they fixed that. And so as long as you have some element of common sense, you can kind of do a decent amount of your damage, right? If you're sat there on a hunter with like full focus all day, then, you know, that's not Blizzard's fault. But to be really, really, truly good, it takes more than knowing your class. I mean, there's, especially in the current game, in the current meta game anyway, which is bearing in mind how much RNG goes off with the RPPM system, and trying to weave that into your decision-making process and trying to track that in some manner or another, although it's random to start with. So you're kind of like, I'm trying to just like balance all these spinning plates that they keep adding more and more plates to it. The control is what I would like to see back, so I could truly... I just miss competition more than anything. I don't think there's great deals of competition anymore in DPS, because a lot of it is out of your hands. Like, the top end, really pushing for the top end of performance is completely out of your hands. Like, way, way out of your hands. And that's the sad part to me. Not the skill cap it takes to play, because there's so many other factors that you can add into skill afterwards rather than playing the class. Although I would certainly like the classes to, some of them to be more difficult. Like Moonkin would be an example. I would like Moonkin to be far more interesting than it is. I think that would be pretty good. Okay. Do you miss hybrid specs? No. No, I don't. Hybrid specs, no. I mean, this in the respect of they was punished, right? In the respects that they were punished for being hybrid specs, I don't miss that. There's certain things I miss. Like, as a whole, no, I don't miss it. Do I miss being able to, like, Tranquility on my Guardian Druid? Yes. Right? That was a really cool aspect of it. I remember specifically on the dragon that you activated. I think it was a dragon. Whatever. Draconid. The dragon that you activated with the robot in Blackwing Descent. It was a vital part of the fight that I was as a feral druid or guardian druid as it is now, is to pop out and do things like hybrid style, because I'm still a druid, I can still do this tranquility and do some cool things. That I miss that aspect of it, but I don't miss being that classes were punished for being a hybrid spec. I think that's terrible. I don't think hybrid specs exist anymore. I think hybrids are a real old throwback, honestly. A real old throwback. Are you really saying an enhancement shaman is a hybrid spec? Not really. They perform on their own. You know what I mean? They're not a hybrid spec. Hybrid, the idea of a hybrid is that you can't do anything really, really well. You do things in other ways. So I don't think that even exists anymore. I would so not think that. Okay. Another 5 minutes or so, guys. Should raiders be expected to be able to play multiple classes specs for when the time arises? Our Dis priest will only ever play Dis, but I myself will happily play. In my personal opinion, if you're not a spec. Ever. And that is the first step to being a fucking shit player, in my opinion. You're a warrior. You're a death knight. You're a priest. You're not a shadow priest. You're not a fury warrior. You're not a fucking unholy DK. You're a death knight. And honestly, you notice this, and you're probably going to see it soon, especially if Legion is your first expansion. I'd be curious to see if for any of you, if Legion's going to be your first expansion moment, right? I'd be curious to see that. I bet there's not that many of you. When we had things like the challenge modes thing at the launch of Mists of Pandaria, at the launch of WoD, and I discovered that not many of the tank-capable DPSs and or healers in my guild were willing to do that. Because I'm a DPS warrior. That is all I do. Go and fuck yourself. You're a warrior. This progresses the whole guild. You're actually not only holding back yourself, but you're holding back 4 other people at least with your shitty attitude and your inability to play your class. If that sounds harsh, it is harsh. You're a warrior. You shouldn't be arms. I'm an arms warrior. What the fuck does that mean? Are you fucking serious, dude? You can press Colossus Smash and Mortal Strike. That's what you are. That's how you define yourself. Yeah, no, not at all. You should be able to switch, because what if Blizzard's like, what happens to these guys who are at Fury Warrior and then they're like, oh, well, Fury's nerfed to the ground now. They just don't play anymore. Fuck off. Fuck off. You're useless to me. I seriously consider removing those people because you're useless to me. I should never be in a situation. This should never happen. It should never happen. I swear to you, and it will never happen in a decent guild, ever. Is that your tank can't make it. Like, I can't raid at the moment. It's a fucking shitter, because it's the only thing I really enjoy in WoW at the moment. And I can't do it. I haven't even been able to log in to make videos. I'm that fucking tied up with new babies and shit, right? But when I don't log into tank, there's rep pallies, there's multiple DPS warriors, right? There's all these people who can tank. And if all of them go, well, I can't tank, leave the guild. Just get the fuck out of there. You would rather not raid than fucking equip a fucking shield. Fuck off, dude. Get out of here. Stop wasting everyone's time with your crappy attitude. That's my personal opinion on it. My personal opinion. Are you determined to make your kids PC gamers? Absolutely not. I am very fortunate in that my wife, I consider myself fortunate, although other couples work in different ways. It's completely however your relationship works, right? But my wife is extremely outgoing. She has a horse, right? And she goes to the farm like every day. And she loves animals and shit, right? I like animals. I don't love them. I love gaming. I love playing games. Love it. Absolutely loved it since I was a kid. Since I got my first Commodore 64, I was like, this is me, right? My kids will do whatever they have, but they have the choice of both worlds. I will say one thing, though. My son fucking loves video games. My 2-year-old loves video games. He's now big enough to sit on this chair. And I had Mad Max open because I'd finished... I was finished recording to make the video, and I think I was rendering. So I often, like most people do, leave the games open while I left the room. And I came in and he was sat on my chair with my controller in his hands because it was a car. And he was just pressing A, which is boost in the game. And he was just going... And he loves playing Rocket League. He brings me controllers. So, yeah, there you go. So, it's natural, I suppose. But he's a kid. Yeah, the Lich Baby... My son turns 2-year-old in 2 minutes. 2 minutes from this phrase, my son will be 2 years old. My son has already 2 favourite games, which are Binding of Isaac Rebirth and Rocket League. And, yeah, he doesn't like Mario. I think it's too colourful for him. I think it's not dank and dirty enough. So yeah, he has two favourite games already. And he'll bring me the controller. He'll bring me like the PS4 controller to turn one of them on. He plays them on a console. Is it worth choosing a main for Legion now? Yes. But, wait, no, that's wrong. No, because all the classes are getting reworked. So, who knows what the fuck that means. Who knows what that means. So, yeah, probably not, actually. Wait and see. Wait and see. Wait and see is what I'd say to that. Wait and see. My son does have good taste. Well, he can only play my games collection. He can only play what's in my library, let's be honest. So, yeah, as much of his choices. I have two consoles. I have my Wii and my PS4 on my desk. I'm not into the whole console hatred thing. Consoles are good for what they are. They do what they want to do. Yeah, his birthday's in 1 minute. My God, and I'm gonna celebrate his birthday by watching Doctor Who. So let's say last question, because you guys have been fucking amazing tonight, to be honest. Now that WoW is getting yearly expansions, do you think getting rid of subscriptions is a thing? No, I don't. I think they should just get rid of the yearly expansion thing. Let's do another one. We hear all of this great stuff about Legion, but how will they actually make it fun? I mean, look at what. It's always the problem with the MMO, right? Always the problem with the MMO is that your player base. Happy birthday, my son! Happy birthday. Your player base all want different things, right? So the only solution to make it fun is to do a lot of choice. What you can't do is, which is kind of the trap they fell into towards the end of MOP and certainly with Warlords of Draenor, is try and force people down a path. Like, this is where you should go. This is where we want you to be, and this is how you get there. And outside of that, there's actually nothing. Not that there's little things you can be doing, like we saw in Wrath of the Lich King, and we saw in Kata and TBC, and Vanilla, and to a certain extent MOP. It's like, there's stuff outside of this path, but we want you to go on this path. And in WoD, it was like, here's your path. You all must walk this path. All of you, regardless. That doesn't work. To make an MMO fun, and what Blizz needs to get back to, in my opinion, is just simply choice. Choice, choice, choice. People shouldn't be logging in and asking what to do in a game like World of Warcraft. It should never happen. You should log in and like, which of these things do I want to do? Not, what can I do? Right? That's the wrong question. If people are logging in and saying, what can I even do? That's no fun. People should log in and be like, what of all these things do I want to do, or what appeals to be more? And then you work through it that way. So I think that's going to be pretty cool. Alright, it is officially my son's birthday. I want to go and watch Doctor Who because I'm a massive nerd. I expect to be getting out of bed in the next 5 hours. So I am going to leave you, gents and ladies, because that's been a really fun night. Thank you so much for asking these questions. I'll try and do these Q&As probably once every couple of months. It seems to be quite popular. It seems to be get a lot of information out there. So I'll try and do that. I'll try and do this regularly, right? I think that was pretty fun. I think you guys took to it quite well. Yeah, birthday party tomorrow. So I'll tweet some pictures. We're not doing anything mega. We're having a barbecue. We bought all the food. Me and Ghosty went shopping today. Shopping with Ghosty. That's a hell of an event. Shopping with Ghosty, where we pick up where Ghosty was trying to convince himself that Ava, his daughter, definitely needs a crossbow for Christmas. And we saw mounted turrets. Yes, there's a Transmog competition at the next web show. All you need to do is send your Transmog. It must be on the character creation screen, and please not too much of a tier set, otherwise it definitely won't be considered. To preachgaming@gmail.com. Please, as the subject, put XMOG, XMOG. Otherwise, I might not find it. I'm going to have to sift through all of them. I've seen my email whizzing by. There are loads and loads and loads and loads and loads of them already. Please just put in the subject Transmog. Please, I would absolutely adore that. Makes my life so much fucking easy. So much easier. So yeah, me and Ghosty have been burger shopping today. We got burgers and sausages and buns and fruit and all that kind of stuff, and cold cuts and all that kind of stuff. And hopefully my lovely brother who's in the chat, who I haven't seen for ages, is going to come and get the barbecue started for us. Because we're going to a play centre. It's very simple. He's a 2-year-old. So we're going to a play centre with ball pits, and then we're going to have a barbecue. And that's what we're going to do. All right, guys. Thank you so much for the question time. Thank you everybody who sent me like a donation and subscribed. I know I missed the subscribers and I missed donations and stuff. I'm really sorry. The tracker helps with that, but I just want to talk to you guys. That's all I want to do. Have a great rest of your weekend, guys. Be good. All right? See you later. Don't forget the nut cream. I'll do my best. Bye-bye.